Hi there, superstars. Happy Tuesday night. I hope all of you are doing well. I wanted to welcome you all to live streaming on YouTube. I have not done this before, and I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for following me and watching all my videos. Let me know what videos you'd like to see more of. Today, I want to talk about something that I'm seeing more and more of. I'm seeing a lot more anxiety and depression and mental health issues amongst our population. I've had a lot of patients in the practice this week dealing with coronavirus and COVID-19 repercussions, meaning quarantined at home and having to be with a lot of family over and over again, but still having to be school teachers and parents and still work and still do everything else they're supposed to be doing. And a lot of people are breaking down at this point. And you may be feeling like that too. So for all the moms and dads out there who are feeling that way, please understand that you're not alone. I've been taking so many calls recently of people telling me exactly that they feel like they just can't do this anymore. They feel alone and they really don't know what the answer is in terms of moving forward. So I have just some very simple tools and suggestions that I wanted to share with everybody. We're going to go through some anxiety recommendations. And if you don't have my anxiety guide, I encourage you to download it. It's a free resource. If you go to drtaz.com/shop, you'll see my anxiety guide there. And that can give you a lot of different ideas of what to be thinking about when it comes to your anxiety and depression in this global pandemic. There's so many reasons for anxiety. We probably don't need to belabor that, right? We know that we are anxious because we don't know what the future is going to be like. We're tired. We're having to multitask and juggle. So we know the reasons. What we want to make sure we're doing, though, is kind of covering the basics. So there's some basics when it comes to anxiety management. First of all, getting a good night's sleep is absolutely essential. So sticking with the same sleep cycle, like going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, all of those things are very important when dealing with anxiety. So that's rule number one. If you're having trouble falling asleep and staying asleep, well, there's some different tools and tricks for that, but I have some of my favorites are using magnesium, an herb called magnolia bark. I put those together along with melatonin in one of my products called Sleep Savior, which helps tremendously with both falling asleep and staying asleep. So sleep is critical to have a well-rested brain that can handle the tossing and turning of any given day. Rule number two is setting aside 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night to reset your energy. It takes that amount of time. I used to say 5 to 10 minutes, but we're understanding that energy really works in 20-minute cycles. So take 20 minutes to write, to journal in something, or maybe it's active. You are actually doing a moving meditation, something like yoga, or you're doing Qigong or Tai Chi. Any of these things will help you manage anxiety and get your emotions out of your body, which is what your goal is. You don't want them to live here. You want to get them out so that you're not walking around with them, because ultimately they do show up as inflammation. So helping your anxiety by setting that 20-minute energy reboot in the morning and then again at night, getting a good night's sleep. Those are my two key tips. The third is to really sort of build an anxiety toolbox, like things you can do when you start to feel anxious and overburdened throughout the day. There's so many different hacks and tricks. Breath work is one of my favorites. We've talked about the 4-7-8 breath before, where you inhale, you hold it for 7, you exhale for 8. The key with all breath work to lower anxiety is to make the exhale longer than the inhale. So you don't have to overthink it. Just kind of make that exhale longer than the inhale. Guided imagery is something that I love. Take a couple minutes in the middle of the day to go listen to a guided meditation where somebody is talking to you about how to sort of take care of yourself or the thoughts you should think, because otherwise our thoughts are just running a mile a minute and we're having a lot of trouble controlling it. All right, so moving on from the toolbox, other things you could put into your toolbox are things like essential oils. I carry around these rollers a lot of times when I'm starting to feel anxious. There's some supplements I'm using as well, like GABA is one of my favorites, theanine, which is naturally found in teas. And then speaking of teas, again, amazing teas like holy basil, tulsi, chamomile tea, that all help to calm anxiety down. So you can sip on that throughout the day too and help. And worst case scenario, if you're really struggling with anxiety, then thinking about talking to your doctor about a medication. And I've been getting a lot of those calls. It makes me worried about all of us, but I've been getting a lot of those calls this week that many of you need prescription medications because the anxiety and even the depression is getting overwhelming. And again, that is the purpose of medication. It is to use at times when we feel completely out of control and we may need a temporary fix. So I get that 100%. All right, one more tip about managing anxiety in a global pandemic, and that is really understanding actually two more tips. Let's do two more so we get to a total of 5. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Taz, and we're talking today about anxiety and mental health stability and overall vitality in an age of coronavirus and the global pandemic. I've been taking a ton of calls where my patients, I feel like, are not doing so great, and I'm truly worried about them. We've talked more about the virus, but we're not talking about the fallout when it comes to quarantining people, social distancing people, laying them off, having them unemployed. I mean, we're not talking about the really, really deep repercussions of all of that, and it's honestly quite heartbreaking. But we do have to manage the day to day. We have to put one foot in front of the other. So managing your anxiety is key. And we've talked about a couple of things you can do to manage anxiety. One being, getting a good night's sleep, creating 2 20-minute energy cycles throughout your day, making sure you have an additional anxiety toolbox. Now we're talking more about setting boundaries, making sure you're not overcommitting yourself in a given day, really setting realistic expectations and dialing it down just a little bit. You may not conquer the world during this quarantine. It's okay. You don't have to be perfect. I had somebody else say this. You don't have to be perfect just because your neighbor or your friend or your sister is organizing every drawer and every closet and the garage. If you just want to chill for a day, that's okay. Give yourself the permission to do so. And last but not least is, I think, turn off the news. It's just constant negativity over and over again, doom and gloom. I think really have a news budget, 30 minutes a day, maybe an hour at most. Honestly, don't need to be listening more than that. You just need to know what's going on and then be done. But otherwise, this whole conversation about COVID and coronavirus and opening and closing and sheltering in place, if you watch it too much, you start to realize that there's a political undertone to it. There's a government undertone to it. And rather than getting caught up in all of that, you need to understand how the story relates to you and what you can do to control your immediate situation. So I hope that's helpful information. Again, I've got these anxiety guides on my website, drtaz.com. You can head to the shop and download the guides there. They're also on my Instagram page as well, but I encourage you to check it out. We have other videos posted here on the YouTube channel about anxiety, and then we've done quite a few blogs on anxiety as well if you search it on the Dr. Taz site. Hope this information was helpful. I encourage you all to hang in there and stay hopeful and stay positive as we will all get through this together. Good night.